Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain, co-host, here with Joe Daniel as always.
What's up, Coach?
Dude, we're back in the digital world. We're not side by side anymore.
Yep.
That was a fun one. I enjoyed getting to hang out with those guys, Colin and Brady. The 425 clinic was a blast.
Yeah.
I have to ask, and maybe I should have done this before we hit record, did you get any responses on where the next one's going to be?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Do we need to keep it in suspense, or do we?
No. But I will say, if you have a request, I would get it in. Just email me, joe@joedanielfootball.com, if you would like to put in your request for where the next clinic is, or if you have a school that is a reasonable distance from a reasonable airport.
Yeah, to host one
for me, that you can host one. So
you're saying that Oklahoma's out because, I mean, you can fly into Tulsa. It's an hour and a half. But
I mean, I don't know what reasonable airports are like. I don't know the reasonable airport distance. But yeah, reasonable distance from a reasonable airport would be nice. But yeah, I mean, I'd love to do another one, whether it's this year or getting them sorted for next year.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of fun, very positive feedback. And, we just I think really, it went really well. Very happy about it. So
yes,
that's where we are.
I know I'm sure everybody listening to this, because I say a lot of people have planned an event, right? An event that you're expecting people to show up to. It could be your kid's birthday party or something that you're charging for. And there's always that anticipation when you go live with it. What if nobody comes to my kid's birthday party, right? Like, I'm going to get there and then what? So it is, even as coaches, I had that. I was like, what if nobody buys into this?
Right.
So it was refreshing that, like, not only do we have quite a few people show up, but then, like you said, all the positive reviews, getting to speak to coaches there and their excitement for the podcast and their excitement for JDFB football. And it was just really neat. It was an awesome experience for me. I hope we do get to do another one this year. But if not, it's only onwards and upwards for next year. So
yeah, no,
it was good. Power minute for tonight. Try to scroll up over here. There we go. Compartmentalizing your coaching. We're talking practice planning tonight. So how to use the containers principle, staying focused so you get faster development and get more done in less time. So obviously the conversation tonight is going to be based around, Coach, there's so much stuff to do. How do we get it all in? And of course, we're going to talk about the simplicity and the Coach Simple Play Fast Win and how compartments help us do that by getting in everything you need. Just a few weeks ago, we talked about the install schedule. So you can even go back to that if you're looking for a specific defense. 425 was that one. But a lot of simplicity this season, a lot of getting back to the basics and the how-to, more than the like, what all do you put in, but more of the how-to. How as a coach do you get it all done? Which is fantastic for me, because that's what I get to do now. So
yeah,
the how-to episodes have been great. Last week, we did talk about things I wish I knew before becoming a head coach. I understand that the audio on that one might not be as good because we had mics in front of our faces, and I probably should email StreamYard with a very strongly worded email, but it just wouldn't hit record. It just said, nope. It gave us the black screen, and I had no other way to hook the mic. So we had mics, I think, as props. We thought it was recording. It didn't. Right. It was not at all.
Yeah.
So we were using them for real, but that we just, luckily my camera is good enough. It picked it up, and life goes on. So some lessons learned, which is why we had a lot of people wanting us to go live that first clinic. But there's a lot that goes into, you can't, because here's what I learned. Schools have a lot of stuff blocked.
Yes.
We showed up and StreamYard was blocked. So now we're using my phone, which apparently wasn't fast enough in Boston. So very strange stuff. So you guys are like, I wish you guys would go live. We do too. But there's a lot of hurdles. And with your proof of concept and the first one, we didn't want those hurdles. So we ran into them anyway. Anyway, hopefully you got something out of that.
And doing a live. Yeah.
Yeah. Next week's topic, we're talking about, do your play calls know their why? Which would be a great episode, just getting back to knowing your why, right? Having a purpose for everything. I had great conversation this week with a DC that I've worked with before, and he was just talking about, Joe, we were actually laughing about my second year when I was calling coverages and calling blitzes just because, and it lost me a job. and it should have. I've gotten over that hill of and learned how to take blame for myself. But anyway, yeah, you got to have a purpose for those things. You can't just be calling them willy nilly. So
Yep.
that's good. I guess let's pay the bills, man, and we'll talk some ball here.
Oh man, I forgot about that part. No, I'll just I want to talk about what, because I've run into, and we'll talk about more on our level up, but we just did the 425 defense, coaching football's 425 defense, that second edition, digital edition. We did an early access launch for it, and part of that was originally I was only going to do it for members. We decided to do a package deal where signups we could also get 30 days of access so that you would be a member during that time. And obviously I'm trying to grow our membership, but also want to make sure that when you get in there that you are getting all that there is to JDFB. And we have our Coach Simple process. And so the Coach Simple process that was developed over the last few years, I've had a couple coaches who were like, they had been in like years ago, and they're like, I didn't know you did all this. And it's like, no, this is, and then a lot of coaches were like, I didn't know this was going to happen. But this is what happens. This is not, no offense to Coach Tube or Third Deep or any of that, but that's videos, right? This is very much more like put me on your staff type of stuff. And so what we do is a Coach Simple process. So the first thing is you fill out, after you sign up for JDFB Premium Coaching Systems at joedanielfootball.com/membership, you start with a kickoff registration. And it's just telling us about your football program, your biggest obstacles, your biggest goals, what's been happening there, your role, your experience, everything. It lets me know. And having done so many of these, I can look at them and kind of know, like, this is where this needs to go. And then the second step is I send you first step is you get a kickoff diagnostic. It's like a 35-point diagnostic of this is all that's going on in your football program. And you get a star rating for your program, which is probably not something that surprises you because you told us about it. And we're you're the one that told us this was going this way. But then we take that and I do a personalized video where we call it our quick start. And I tell you, we have a 7-video series called the Roadmap to Victory Quick Start Guide. And what that is it is the 7 videos that are the 7 kind of pillars, cornerstones, one of which we're going to be talking about tonight with the containers principle. And I point out the ones that I think to focus on to help you make the biggest impact as fast as possible. That's step 2. Step 3 is a personalized one-on-one, that's a personalized video. Step 3 is a one-on-one call with me. So we get on the phone, answer questions. I ask you a couple questions. I don't try to sell you anything. You're already here. And we get on the phone and we talk about, answer questions for your program. Make sure you have everything. Make sure you've seen everything that can help you and answer specific questions to make sure you know that you are in the right place. Or occasionally you're not in the right place. This is not going to work. Now I'll be very blunt with you and tell you, hey, what you want to happen with this is just not going to happen. And that does happen occasionally as well. So, but then step 4 is we get on that call. Then step 4 is we continue to support you with our Chalk Talk Q&A calls, which we had one here almost the last week of March, the 4th week of March. We just had one. We do a Q&A call where you get on there and big group of coaches asking questions. We had a ton of questions in this most recent one. And then we put all that together and we have a chalkboard forum. So just continued support for you all through the season. So if you have been thinking about JDFB and you're not sure, I promise you that we will get you with that Roadmap to Victory process. We'll make sure that you get the things that you need. This is not buying some videos and then they're just there and maybe you watch it, maybe you don't. Like, I force you I harass you until you actually implement, think through all of this stuff. And you don't have to do it the exact way that we talk about, but when we actually help a lot of coaches, we have coaches who are just examples of things that we talk about is like adapting to youth, adapting to 9-man. We have coaches who are defensive coordinators and like my head coach wants this. And we say okay, here's how we can make it work with what your head coach wants. We do tons and tons of that. I'm a position coach and I don't get to pick the defense, but what can I do to make it better? We talk about that. So that's just all that we do at JDFB. That's a long version, joedanielfootball.com/membership. But the Coach Simple process is a major part of that. And if you join, be ready for it.
Yes, I will not even pay a bill because that's a good one. Go to JDFB. Yeah. You will get exponential growth in your coaching, whether you're a head coach. I did it as an assistant and I loved it.
Right.
It doesn't matter what level you are. You may find things as the head coach is like, hey, we're not going to do that. And that's okay. It
Right.
teaches you a concept of how things can work. So, yep, highly recommend jdfbfootball.com/membership. Let's jump into it here, Joe. So we are talking about containers principle tonight. And part of that Coach Simple philosophy and, you kind of understated there, and even as much as you talked about Joe Daniel football just a moment ago, how all of it begins to kind of go together. Everything becomes the trend of how do we cut that out? How do we cut more? How do we simplify? How do we get back to what's necessary? Once again, and we'll say this again, I'll say it every time that I talk about JDFB, because we get the internet football don't work, or we get the, oh, sure, you can just run elementary. No, simplified does not mean elementary.
Right.
Okay, simplified means kind of what we're talking about next week and having a purpose for everything. It
Right.
means putting containers in so that the 90 minutes practice plan is the big one for me, which is kind of, big part of tonight's topic is how do you get everything in 90 minutes? What is everything? You have to figure out what you can get in 90 minutes, right? And you can still have enough in. Or maybe for year one, it's just this containers principle is just a guide. Maybe you're going from 3-hour practice down to 2 because you're simplifying. That's okay too. But you will see as you get into JDFB, as you get into these Coach Simple philosophy, or this Coach Simple philosophy, that you'll start putting it to everything. Why does the weight room need to take an hour and a half to get in and get out? It doesn't, right? I mean, our school, and like most schools now, has an in-school day weightlifting period, and that's, from bell to bell.
Most schools is a stretch, but
yeah, well, so, okay. But that's 50 minutes. And you got to get a full day's lift in, and they still have to get in there and get changed and then do some kind of a warm up. And then you got to give them time to change to get out and not make them tardy for the next class. So, right, when you start thinking about that, like, no, you're not going to bodybuild like Arnold Schwarzenegger, who spent 8 hours in the gym or whatever. But is that really what you're trying to do anyway? So tell me how we can use that containers principle with something that isn't Arnold Schwarzenegger in the gym to contain our practice planning and get everything in.
Yeah, so this is really about compartmentalization in a way. There's a couple parts, couple elements to this. There's so many ways that you can use this concept. And so it's called the containers principle, and it is essentially, it comes across in several different ways, but the most basic thing is everything has its compartment, everything has its container, and everything has a beginning and an end. And honestly, if I was going to apply this in one way first, it would be the containers principle is everything has a beginning and an end. And then I would just start there. And that's going to be really going into our third part. But the two things with this, it's the idea behind it is you are putting limits on yourself, because we know as coaches, man, running a million, like I love every offense there is out there. Like people think that I'm this or that or whatever. Same thing, defense. I love it all. I want to try it all. I want to run a double wing. I want to run a single wing. I want to run, and I do. I want to run, wing tee and do gun tee, and I want to read an RPO, and I want to do it all. It all looks fun. It all works. It's proven. I mean, you just can't, it all works if you get it right, but you can't get it all right. Like it's not, that part won't work. Right. And so we put, handcuffs on ourselves as coaches. We also know that the guy that's the head coach making the practice plan is probably the most passionate guy about football in the building. And we coach, we dealt with it at the JDFB 425 clinic. Biggest containers principle, time, start and end, right? In that room, I want to talk about, and we joke about it, but I get going, and we do it on the podcast too. I've got a million things to do. I am tired as hell. I've been talking about football all freaking day. I'm not even kidding. Okay. The entire from 9 a.m. I had an hour of talk with our marketing designer team here and talking about the business side of it for an hour. And then since then it has been nonstop football, coach calls, roadmap to victories, podcasts, all of these things. But I'm okay. And every single one of them, we've talked about this too. I'm like, I got another one. I got to do another one. And then once I get on it, I'm in.
Yeah.
So we've got to have that. There's got to be a start time. Coaches are all about being on time at the start. But we would all stay out at practice for 4 hours if there was no container. And so there's so many things to it, and so many of the things that we do operate as the containers. ASCA, you got an alignment, stance, key, read, assignment, and you can't overcomplicate that. There's only one line for each one, and you got to fill that in. Film breakdown. Everything has beginning and end. It goes in its compartment. It lives in its world. Going back to the umbrella principle and the umbrella run fits principle and the containers there, spill, force, alley, stay in coverage. It's not just the defense. It's, rec that the rec soccer defense where everybody just chase ball has no containers.
Right.
And it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. Offensively, we're going to talk more specifically about some of these different things, but offensively, the container that I always put in our, we have our offensive system, and for the most part, the containers are, this is what it is, but in our offensive run game, we have the inside run, outside run, off tackle run, and a counter, which isn't a container in and of itself, but it tells us, like, I don't need 19 toss plays and not
Right.
have it. But more importantly, in the pistol power offense system, we have two blocking schemes. We have inside zone and outside zone. We have zone and gap schemes. Inside zone and outside zone use the same blocking scheme. Power and counter use the same blocking scheme. And we very much try to not install anything that isn't either using one of those schemes just with different dressing, different player getting the ball, different motions, different formation, or then we have our other compartment, which is where the container principle started. I guess I should back up all the way to where it started. And I came up with the container's name just because this was kind of awkward. We called it 95-1. 90-minute practice plan, 5-day install, 1 period to install anything new once the season started. And so that container was a time container. We're going to get practice done in 90 minutes. We're going to get the entire base installed in 5 days. We are going to, and those containers said, look, this is how much you can practice. This is how much you can install. This is how much you can change or tweak or update or install new once the season gets going. So we have to reuse techniques that already exist. So that's the origin of the containers principle, but that's really, containers came to mean a lot of different things. And if you start to apply it, like you mentioned, you see it in everything. Your coaching philosophy is a container. For me, the container is Coach Simple, right? Coach Simple, play fast, win. Now we have a lot of tools that work towards that, but if it's, and again, expand it, Coach Simple, so that your kids understand, so that your coaches understand, so all those things, so that they can play fast, so that they understand what they're being asked to do, so that it builds their confidence. We talk about the bandwidth of confidence, and they're in that bandwidth of confidence, and they feel good as they're bumping up against that bandwidth. We can start to move it. But if they're falling out of the bottom of that bandwidth, then we can raise and lower the bandwidth, but we can't just do the whole spectrum. And so all of those things, Coach Simple philosophy is a container. Umbrella run fits is a container. So all of your principles and all of the things that you believe and all the things that you buy into, they're all containers for you. And it's just, that's, every one of those things helps define. It really helps ultimately define, this is what I should be doing right now. This is what I should not be doing.
Having it, it's funny. You talk about how it kind of came about, and I can remember that day because I think you had even bought containers, if I remember correct. Maybe we talked about the container store or something. I can remember. But as thinking about all of it has to fit, right? Like we do that in our house all the time. Everything has to fit in here in a certain way, or we're not going to get it all in. And I think that's where the simplicity comes from. Is one, yes, it's a container on time. We're talking about practice planning today, so I kind of stick to that one. You only get so much time, and that we can all admit has changed. I think that time has probably shortened as people's memory or attention spans have gotten smaller. It really feels like the school day has gotten longer so that you have even less of the student than you could have, 30 years ago or whatever. I don't know what I was like back then, but coaches are a lot different. We talk about the underdeveloped player a lot when you talk about NFL quarterbacks. There's like two good ones. There's so few NFL ready quarterbacks in the world that they brought a 40 some odd year old man out of retirement in Phillip Rivers to go win a few games instead of just picking up an undrafted free agent rookie or something, right? Like a guy who's been retired. He has
5 years. Yeah.
a lot. I mean, he was ready for the Hall of Fame. He had to restart his timer because he would have been on the ballot. I don't know if he got in or not, but that's how few NFL caliber quarterbacks are in the world. And we're seeing that at college and we're seeing it at our level, right? Like kids just aren't as football ready as they once were. And that we could point the finger, I guess, back to genetics. I don't know. Maybe we're just becoming watered down as a human race and the ability to understand and play football. But the containers principle helps that in the fact that you can get kids to do some things really, really well. You can't get them to do everything. But coaches is the next level, right? Your coaches, just like kids, there are fewer and fewer coaches that are able to just communicate and teach really, really well, whatever you're trying to put in. So if you carry a super complex system, or maybe one that's not a system at all, you're just installing plays and formations with no foundation under it, you need something to give your coaches the ability to really teach. And I think the containers principle helps with that, especially when it comes to practice planning. You can, because look, if you go out with a good plan, okay, we always come back to install. For me, that's like the first place that containers principle matters. Because like, how are you going to install your program? You have the 5-day install for the 4-2-5 defense. I am buying more and more into like the 3-day install and repetitive install, repeating days, right? You have to have these containers of how much stuff can we actually give to these kids before we are. I love the bandwidth confidence. That's a great one that I've carried since you started. I remember hearing about 2 or 3 years ago the first time. I'm sure you talked about it a lot before I even came on the podcast, but that's a great visual. Like you can see when those kids have fallen out of the bottom. You know what I mean? You've got that bandwidth on jacks. You're putting in more stuff. This is fun. More tools, more weapons. And then all of a sudden the kid can't do the day one install stuff because he's just overwhelmed. You see it on game film analysis a lot, right? When kids are frozen or just stand up as an O lineman and they don't go anywhere because they don't know where to go anymore. So that's a great visual to have and another great container. So the ability to take what you're trying to do, figure out what you really need out of all of that, and then get it into this practice schedule, I think is a fantastic first way to get into containers principle with the time and all of that. So
time is really the easiest concept to understand with it, but then you start to apply it to different things. And so it actually already existed with the 90-minute practice plan, but then I, started learning about different time management tools and different time management things and the way that time management, money management are both really, really good examples, and everybody knows these things. If you have a job to do, it will expand to the time that you give it. So if I say, the 4-2-5 coaching football's 4-2-5 defense second edition, that I started working on rewriting. I wrote it in 2011. I started working on updating it, rewriting it without a clear plan, without any containers, without any deadlines. In 2019, I stopped and started multiple times since then. Sometimes I got a chapter or two. Sometimes I got, halfway. And then it wasn't what I wanted. And there wasn't any pressure to get it done. It wasn't like a centerpiece. I wasn't getting a lot of complaints about it. It was just something that I didn't like. I didn't like that it was outdated, that people were getting it. And so I just kind of stopped promoting the original edition, but it's still out there. And people would occasionally bring up differences. And I think we finally sat down and said, look, with my team and said, look, this thing needs to be out by this day. And we got pretty close, but it was done. The writing was done. I mean, like 5 days later, the writing was done. Now there was 100 diagrams to draw. There was the formatting. There was plenty of other things to be done, but the writing, which once it's written, then I know how to draw the diagrams. It's just, but I had to have that container. We had to have this is the end point. And if it's not done at this point, like, we're building around this, we're planning around this. So like, that's the example of like, without that end point, without that start and end point, we had a lot of starts and like just never getting anywhere. Money, everybody understands the money one, right? Everybody understands whether you're good with money or bad with money. If money doesn't all have a purpose and a place and a plan, you will get a raise. Everybody knows your expenses expand very quickly if you get a raise. All of a sudden you're like, look at all this extra money I got. 6 months later, you're like in the same place unless you have very, very well defined containers. That's what a budget is. And then other people have different money problems, and they will expand to the maximum allowable balance on every single credit card they have. And it's, somebody else is setting the container for you, but if you don't have that budget set. So that's where a lot of the idea came from. It was already happening with the 90-minute practice plan, but you see where those ideas come in. And then for me, it was, okay, I've got a lot of principles. Hire experts is one. So the container for me in that is, I am the football expert. I need somebody to come in and get the weight room, somebody to do the speed. So, I'm the football expert. Ultimately, we're going to get somebody to come in and help with the fundraising. All of these things we need a container on, because otherwise you as the head coach end up doing it all, and it's not sustainable. And honestly, you're probably not a good football coach, speed coach, weight room coach, fundraiser, and all of the hats that we're supposed to wear. We're not going to be experts in all of those things. So we need help, and we need to recognize that this is where my role is, and I need to bring in help from other places. I need to bring in, container might be for you. I'm going to run as a head coach, it might be like, I need an offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, I need a special teams coordinator, whatever it is. Those are containers. And of course, obviously with high school, we cross a lot of lines, but that's the idea behind it, and where it came from. Just like everything in there is like, I mean, even the umbrella, like if you go to the umbrella, there's just so many examples of it, and you start to just apply it to everything. If you go to the umbrella, I talk to guys about the umbrella and like, where should the best players be, and who should the defensive coordinator be working with? I get that question all the time. And I say, work with the safeties, because you think of it as think of the umbrella, make it not an umbrella, make it a jar, make it a container. If you put that container over top of the offense, and speaking specifically of run fits, if you put that container over top of the offense and everything stays underneath the umbrella inside of the force players and the alley defender, creating that bubble, man, eventually we're going to make the tackle, right? The 6 guys underneath can just run around and eventually run into the guy. If we, you think of like bees in a jar, it's like, I got this swarm of bees being kept in this jar, and eventually they're gonna be able to sting the guy with the ball, but we got to keep it under the container. So that's not how it works exactly, but that's the idea of everything stays
Right.
under this bubble. We'll be able to make a lot of football plays. Yeah. It's just, it extends to everything, to so many things. And so that was where it was for me, was trying to simplify my philosophy by taking this containers idea and actually applying it to multiple different things.
Yeah. So let's talk about how we use it to stay focused. The second part here is staying focused for faster development. And I know that focus may not seem like a container, but realistically, if you get away from time, we talked time.
Yeah.
But if my
We'll come back to
container
time.
is, I'm only installing gap scheme today, or maybe this whole season, right? We don't carry a zone play this year. We find an inside run, an outside run, an off tackle all that, and we find a gap scheme play that replaces all of them, that in itself is a container, because you can stay hyper focused on gap down backer, pulls and kicks, pulls and wraps, understanding leverage for down blocks, when is a combo necessary, right? All of these things become so much easier because you're hyper focused. You're getting really good at one blocking technique or one blocking scheme, specifically talking run game here. It doesn't change if you go to mirrored routes, right? There's only so much. I give a lot of grief to guys who use mirrored routes. And Joe, I know we had this conversation before, because I just really like full field concepts. It feels right to me. It's how my brain works. But I get a lot of love nowadays for the guys that are like, we have 9 routes. I can't call 9B and 9C, right? If I'm going to, and I've talked to people that call it that way, like I'd give them 3-digit numbers for my trip side or whatever. We're just running mirrored routes, a 2-digit number for twins, 2x2. That's a container itself. You got to figure out how to solve the defense with theoretically 9 routes on each side. I mean, for each receiver, you know what I mean? You can make these different combos, these different pass concepts, as we start calling them, but that is in itself is a container. Anyway, let's talk about how staying focused does help faster development.
Yeah, and again, there's so many different ways to look at it. One is the what we talked about with, hey, we only run 2 basic blocking schemes: our gap scheme, power counter, and our inside outside zone, and then we create off of that. There are different looks, and so just for example, power counter, we might be like, well, that's whatever, too much, too tight, something like that. And it's like, well, as we've talked about before, well, buck is the same thing. It's a kick out and a wrap. GT counter is the same thing. It's a kick out and a wrap. So when we, those containers can be, you can say this is all that we do. We have the container of we run power to the right. Often we run power to the right and counter to the left. That's a container. It just means that we don't have to spend time working on our right guard skip pull. We don't have to worry about it. Just that kind of stuff. We have our red and white side plays. And so we know that in a red, we're playing a team that runs a 4-2-5 defense. We know that there's a red side and a white side, and we're going to focus on the white side plays going to the weak side, and we're going to focus on the red side plays going to the strong side. So within a game plan, we compartmentalize. So it can limit the amount of thought that we have to do, and the amount of things that we have to do, and the amount of things that we need to come up with. We put containers on game planning blitzes, and we say 1 to 3 exotic blitzes. And if it's not working past Wednesday at the end of practice, we kill it. So that's a container. There's going to be no more than 3 exotic blitzes in any game plan. Okay, that's the container. And then the other container is, when do we kill it? We kill it at the end of practice on Wednesday if it's not working. We don't go into Thursday practice trying to fix a blitz or fix a new play or anything like that. We have our playbook, our offensive playbook, also in the passing game. Like you mentioned, we have 2 quick game concepts. We have 5 drop back concepts. That's it. Now we can tag the heck out of them and create just about anything you can think of, but it's within that container of, this is what we do. You could even go so far as to say, this is a cover 3 beater, so we know that it fits in this container. But I mean, you can do so many, you can apply it in so many ways. You mentioned, with the install plan, one of the things that we do there is we not only draw up the install plan, we have a within our systems at JDFB coaching systems, we have a basic template that we use that is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5. And then it's going to have, on the defensive side, and it's going to be a container of defensive line run principles, defensive line run game, defensive line pass defense. And so there's 2 containers in there. They can work on something that takes them, that helps them with their run game, and they can work on something new with the pass game. And how you define those. Am I working on pass rush and also something else? The biggest piece of this that we've learned is the most important thing in practice planning, though, with focus, is the number one thing is the levers principle. The number one thing here is the levers principle. And there's lots of containers here. ASCA is the core of this. alignment, stance, key read assignment on defense, alignment, stance, keys and communication, and assignment on offense. Within that structure, we say that we have 4 levers that you can pull, and there's 11 positions. So if we're talking defense, you have 4 levers: alignment, stance, key read assignment. We have 11 positions. So there's 44 things that we can be doing on defense, that instead of trying to install something new, or instead of trying to change, or, instead of getting into the scheme of things, we have 44 areas that we could be addressing in any given week. Now, we can't do that. We don't have the manpower. So we try to address basically one offensive thing, or excuse me, one run game thing and one pass game thing within each position group. So in a week of practice, we have one thing in the run game and one thing in the pass game, both sides of the ball, that we are looking to improve on, to fix, to make it so that it is better, make it so that it is even better than it was for us. And it's the thing that we think will make the biggest impact this week. And we know that if we can solve one thing every week over the course of 10 to 15 games, we get pretty good. Depending on what your scrimmages look like and your postseason, you get a lot of chances to pull levers. And so we have that container of one run and one pass. It's defined by the containers of the ASCA, and then it's defined by, one run and one pass lever coming out of those. And then where this really comes around is we put it in the practice plan template that is in the defensive drill system, and it's in multiple places, but in the defensive drill system and the practice plan masterclass that's inside the defensive drill system, where we explain how to use that practice plan, how to design that practice plan, how to implement it. There's one line in there that gets ignored all the time. There's the install line. Everybody wants to put up there the new thing that they're installing, but there's the focus line. There's the focus for each position group. There's the offensive focus and the defensive focus for each position group. And this is what we are focused on getting better at right now, today. And it's usually this is what we're focused on getting better at the whole week. And so you put that container on it, and you tell your position group, you go to your defensive lineman and you say, this week, the goal, the definition today of a good practice or a bad practice. It is not how much we sweat. It is not how much we bleed. It is not how tired we get. It is not how many reps we get. None of that. It is, guys, this week the lever is squeezing down blocks. This week the focus is squeezing down blocks. And everything that we do today is focused on getting better at squeezing down blocks. So we can very quickly look and see, did you get better at squeezing down blocks today? Not did you become a better football player. That's too out there. Not did you get a good workout. Jesus, we could do that in a gym. What the hell are we doing out here and it's 95 degrees? Did you get better at squeezing down blocks today? And we can clearly define as a position group and as a player if you improved, because there is focus and you are focused on that container of this is the thing that today's practice is all about.
The idea of and you kind of stole my thunder for the next piece, but
no problem.
That's okay. The practice shell. That is a huge way to add focus and use a container. Once again, it is time for the most part. But yeah, that focus thing is huge. Like, you only get one focus. As soon as you add focus number 4, if everything's important, nothing's important, right? So It has to be a thing. That's something I really liked. Coach Cameron Palmer kind of taught me through our weekend process was each position group, what did you suck at last week, right? What do we need to get better, and what do we have to do to win this game? That was 2 questions we ask on Sundays, because it does develop your entire practice schedule. Everything can't be important. 1, you would be out there for 6 hours if you were trying to practice everything. And 2, once again, if everything's important, nothing's important. So having to dial in what drills you're using this week, having to dial in even what periods you need, right? We've had guys through the podcasting years talked about, well, as we go on through the year, we stop doing indie, or as we go on through the year, we stop doing team. Like, people begin to transition away from one event or another in their practice plan, because for whatever reason, we choose a focus that doesn't require that, right? I remember a guy came on, I think he came on the show, or may have just talked to him somewhere else, but he said by week 7, I know what it was. It was in one of your Chuck Talks on Monday nights. And he talked about, by week 6 or 7, we had stopped doing indie altogether. It was all group and team because we felt like the fundamentals were there. And we went on a 3-game losing streak after opening 5-0 or whatever. And then we were like, oh crap, we stopped doing indie. So we just scrapped all the team and group and just went to indie. Just go out and do indie. And then all of a sudden we start winning again. We go on a little bit of a streak in the playoffs. So the need to focus and focus on the right thing. I'm not even saying that you need to go all indie. I'm saying what does your team need to get better needs to be the focus. But that is another great compartment, or another great, when you talk about compartmentalizing your coaching, it gives you an area to aim. You stop throwing a dart at the globe and you start throwing the dart at one small area, right? What are we going to get fixed? And another one, and not as, I mean, it is a little bit involved in practice planning, but it's not. But it's in you as a coach, as you're developing yourself. It's another place where you've got to have that focus, right? If you want to look for that focus for super fast development, you can't go learn all of football at one time.
Yes.
You've got to get better at one thing, pick a position group and go get really good at it. And even it may need to be hyper focused on one thing or another. And as you see that in yourself, I think you'll see it in your players as well. You don't know what you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes it takes going out and stumbling to figure out, oh crap, I had no idea what I was doing there. And so you can hyper focus, you can get better at that, and therefore it can, bleed over into your players. Whether that should be your off-season goal. I wouldn't. I mean, in season we always continue to learn, but if you're waiting to make a mistake to figure out what to teach your kids in season, it's probably a little bit too late. Anyway, I think that fit both.
Yeah. The focus as a coach, it's funny how that works. And if JDFB is an example, and I used to go to clinics, and a lot of coaches will go to clinics and go to whatever seems like a good idea. But, I would say without question, for our coaches who wanted to learn the 4-2-5 defense, coming to the JDFB 4-2-5 defense clinic in Boston, that was 2 days for some of those coaches who had never done it before, even if they'd seen some of the videos and stuff, it's drinking from a fire hose for 2 days. But you walk out of there with a much higher understanding, but also of the 4-2-5 defense, but also there's, as a football coach, if you go in and try to get a little bit of everything, my first few years, we had a clinic in Hampton. Like my first few years, I didn't know about Glacier clinics. I wasn't on a staff where everybody was going to clinics. Clinics were a thing that the school sent you to it, and everybody went down there and drank beer by the pool. And I'm like the guy that's going to the clinics by myself, not always by myself, but sometimes by myself. I was there to learn football. Problem was, those clinics down in Hampton were bring in a college guy to talk for an hour about this, bring in a college guy to talk for an hour about this. And it was just it wasn't focused. And I would buy a VHS, because that's how old I am,
Ouch.
or a DVD from, when I could afford one on a topic that I wanted, from Championship Productions or from Coach's Choice, or I would buy a book manual, which was better than the video. Books were way better than the videos at that time. And, I would learn something, but it was just a bunch of stuff. And I did hyper focus on the 3-3-5, but honestly, it wasn't that the Georgia military stuff was good, but not great. And it was when I wanted to learn the 4-3 system, and I started going to Glacier clinics, and they would have 3-hour sessions, 9 hours sometimes, where I was just going through nothing but 4-3 defense as much as possible. And that's where I actually learned the defense and learned run fits and again, in general, I don't recommend the 4-3 defense to almost any of our coaches, colleges and some very large high schools, but and coaches who are already having success with it. Then I go, look, you're already having success with it. I talk a lot. You can, that's fine. The thing is, if it's already working, let's keep building on it, make it even better. But most coaches that are just looking for a new defense, it's usually not the right answer. Usually, sometimes it is, but it's not the 4-3 defense. It's that I learned all the principles of defense, and then I was able to take that and learn the 4-2-5 faster and backtrack and get a better understanding of the 33 stack and take it forward and learn more of a 3-4 system, which was actually adapted from our 4-2-5 system. So the hyper focus in what you want to learn, if you come into JDFB and hyper focus on the 4-2-5 system, you will come out of there with a deeper understanding of so much more, because you're going to get the run fits, which will apply to anything. You're going to get the coach simple philosophy, which applies to everything. The practice planning, the drills, they're the same. And then you take those concepts and so like by focusing on one thing, you learn that one thing faster, but if you do it right, it applies to other stuff. So then you take that and you take that to a player standpoint. If a quarterback comes in and you teach your team a dozen passing concepts, there aren't even a dozen of them, but you throw them all out there to this young quarterback and he doesn't understand any of them, and he doesn't understand how to read progressions, and he doesn't understand route timing, and he doesn't understand any of that, then they all kind of look like crap unless he's super athletic and just, playing out there on the fly. But if I take the time and just teach him hitch seam and reading corners on and off and the timing of the 3-step drop with the timing. Well, if you hyper focus on the hitch seam, and I'm not saying that we necessarily do this exactly, but with young quarterbacks, I often recommend we keep it very, very simple. And he hyper focuses on that, and he understands the timing of route concepts, and he understands how it all comes together and the footwork and how to read a defense just for that simple on or off, one high safety, 2 high safety, trigger reads, all that sort of stuff. He now has an understanding, even though he only understands one route concept. When you move to the second one and you start talking about the second one, hyper focusing on it, he has an understanding of timing. He has an understanding. So with a young quarterback, and a lot of this needs to happen preferably in the off season with your quarterbacks. So we don't have just one passing concept and that kind of stuff. But that's where that hyper focus will advance you and you will learn more faster. So that's one way to accelerate this whole thing. And because we're getting close on time, the second thing goes back to what we said. Yeah, 5 minutes. I get it. Daniel was calling me for 5 minutes all the time in the clinic and I was glaring at him, but it's because I needed a container. Because again, I will keep talking. With time, if we want to get more done in less time, 5-day install, we know exactly what we're going to install. We plan it. When you put the 90-minute practice plan as a container, it is not only are you going to have better practices because everybody knows that you're going to have more effective practices because everybody knows this is it. We got 90 minutes. There's no do it right, do it light, do it wrong, do it long. There's none of that. It's your players want to win. They don't just want to come out there and go home. They want to come out and get a productive practice that makes them a better football player and helps them win on game day. If they're pissed off at your practice, it's because they think that you're wasting time and you're not making them better. And you're going, well, these kids don't want to win. No. They don't believe that what you're doing is helping them win. If they walked out of there feeling like this, and this isn't 100%, you have some kids that are just turds. I get it. But like in general, if your kids are there and they're like, we're getting stuff done, it's effective, it's working. And when it's over, you get a productive practice. You don't get guys out there screwing around because when this one's done, when this 90 minutes passes, and you didn't have a good practice, you lost a chance to get better. Everybody else got better. You lost a chance to get better. So you're going to get more done. You're also going to have better planning because you put a little stress on yourself. Containers should make you feel a little uneasy. You should be thinking, I need more plays. I need more. Because if you put a container on there and you say, we're only going to have 15 passing concepts this year, that's not a container, right?
We're only going to do everything that's been known to man. It's good.
Right. It's no different than, hey, the container is we're only going to spend up to the max out limit of our credit card. Like that's not the plan. That's not the plan. That's, we're only going to stay in practice until the sun goes down and we don't have lights. Once we can't see the ball anymore, we'll go home. That's not a container. Like it doesn't work that way. So you will get more done when you feel a little uncomfortable. And that's why I always, and you talked about it too. if you've been having 3-hour practices, 90 minutes may not be the answer, but gosh, if 2 hours and 15 minutes makes you feel, by the way, that's plenty, but I would never go longer than that. If 2 hours and 15 minutes makes you feel uncomfortable, that can be your container for now, but you need a container, and 3 hours is not the container. So those things are containers that we look for. The 5-day install, same thing. This is what we can get done. But the one that I wanted, the last one that I want to talk about, and is your weekend and your week and your game week. And we have the Game Film Masterclass. The Game Film Masterclass will be opening for enrollment here very soon. This is just happenstance of me not thinking about it until now. But the Game Film Masterclass will be opening for enrollment April 1st, I believe. I believe I got that date right. It'll be opening up for we'll have a special on the Game Film Masterclass for the first week of April. So the Game Film Masterclass was designed for me to not get a divorce. Like, it was for me to not, it was for me.
That is a container, I guess.
It is a container, but it was also designed for me to not stare at the ceiling on Thursday night wide awake, thinking I need to go watch more film. I need to figure it. So the Game Film Masterclass is built on a more efficient way of breaking down that film, with here's what you want to look at. It's got worksheets that you go through. It tells you the first time that you watch it, this is the sheet that you fill out. This is what you look for. This is what you do. The second and third time that you watch it, okay, this is what you look for. This is what you fill out. You don't watch the game again after that. After that, you watch specific cut-ups of situations, and those are the things you're looking for. And you've got sections of situations that you want to look for, cut-ups that you want to look for. And the deal is, in total, if I'm a high school football coach who played on Friday night, I've got my self-scout, which often gets forgotten because we immediately start going, but it is the single most important thing that you can do. I'm going to get my self-scout done. I like to get that done Friday night. If I can get, now we get the film exchange so fast that I can sit up Friday night and get that done and have it over with. And I like to be off Saturday. And then I like to I get our film loaded up Friday night. I don't have to worry about the exchange. I try to take Saturday off. That's another container for me, as I try not to work on Saturday other than a quick call here and there to the coordinator or head coach or whatever. And then Sunday, I take that time to break down the film, and then we have our meeting on Sunday night. By the time that I am done with our meeting Sunday night, the meeting ends with the staff meeting. I've got a couple things that I know that we talked about that I've got to maybe draw up for our players to put on quick cut or whatever it is. At the end of Sunday night, I'm done. There's no more, and that doesn't mean I won't watch any film or won't look at anything, but the breakdown is done. The game plan is done. There's no more looking for tricks. There's no more. And so I've got to be productive on Friday night, no work on Saturday. That's my container. Doesn't have to be yours. No work on Saturday. Get up and get the job done on Sunday, because I probably want to watch some NFL. So I got to get up and get it done, and church and everything else, and like get this film done and have it ready and be ready to go. So that container means that I want everything done on Sunday night. I got to go to work, and I got to have a plan for it. And so the plan is our Game Film Masterclass, and that's how we get it done, because I'm only going to watch the film 3 to 4 times basically, and have a plan for it, and then watch some cut-ups, and that's it. So all of that means that you're not sitting there in class watching film on Friday while your kids are taking a test, because test day is always Friday game day. You're not staring at the ceiling on Thursday night and get out of bed because you just need to watch it one more time. You're not looking for the hacks. You didn't see it the first 4 times. It ain't there. Move on. Just move on. The percentage of times you might find something on the 20th watch through is so small that you are really wasting your time. And we get it done. And that's one of my biggest containers, is for my off season, for my in-season schedule, having that container did so many things for me. These do so many things for you, not just focus and planning and everything, but like burnout, like 90-minute practices. You don't burn out because you're out on the field 3.5 hours every day, by November. Burnout. I'm not burnt out on watching film and breaking down film and all this sort of stuff, because it's done on Sunday. It's over, and I don't do it at all on Saturday. It's just so many things. It's so many things that make life easier when you use these containers.
I love it. You kind of took all the things that I had planned to say, and that
Love
was
doing that. It's my favorite thing.
it's the second time tonight, so it's a good one. When it comes to just getting, so I'll go with this, which is kind of a basic answer, but have a freaking plan for everything,
Yes.
right? Like you have to write down whatever it is that you're going to do. I'm a huge Excel guy. You talk about practice schedules. Get it written down so you know. We've talked about practice shells for 5 years since I've been on here, and I'm
Shells
sure,
are a container in themselves. This is
yeah,
what the
because
practice is going to look like. And it saves you so much time because you just, we always adjust the shell. Like you said, more indie time, less indie time, more team time, less team time. We're not doing 7-on-7 during double wing weeks. We just adjust the practice plan. But yeah, it's a container and it saves you time.
yes.
And it makes by the way, it's more efficient because your kids are know where to go and what to do.
And I also want to talk, and we haven't ever talked about containers but talked about this in containers, but making sure you're getting all of the things done, right? You're not over focusing on the wrong things and you miss out. I guess I'm talking about Cameron twice tonight. He's gave me a checklist for plays that need to be in your play, whether it's your script or your game plan or whatever, right? You need a 2-back set. You need a jumbo set. You need some wrinkles to this and that. Like, don't forget to do these things.
Yep.
But when you have a container that has that listed out for you, special teams, right? You never forget to have situation period, and we have a competitive situation period built in, whether it's third down or second down and long, or who can score the most points in 40 seconds on the clock. If that means you immediately rush out a field goal kicker, or do you try to go down and get point, whatever your competitive period is, you ensure you always have it, because your container is, this is my plan, and we are going to follow the plan. We're going to follow the script and change things as necessary. So don't, and that's a weird way that having a container and compartmentalizing doesn't mean reducing. It means making sure you don't leave something out. I was thinking about that. It was a YouTube video on Facebook back when I was in high school, and I'm sure it's still, but the guy putting stuff in a jar, right? If you put the sand in first, then the marbles, then the rocks don't fit. If you got to put things in a certain order, and that's what containers should be for you, is making sure that we're getting the right stuff in at the right time, and then we can add to, we can modify, we can adjust. The jar is just the jar. The jar doesn't get any bigger. The jar doesn't shrink. You can put less stuff in if you want, but then you're not being as efficient as you could be, right? You get the big things in, you get the medium-sized things, and you get the little things in, and you can pack it full. But you got to start with something to let you know at the end what it is. And that could be your football system. It can be a container. It could be your playbook for that specific season. Your kids, each of your kids is a container on what you can do. If you're an air raid dude and you graduate a quarterback and there ain't no more, you're probably not an air raid dude anymore. You might carry the formations, but you better figure out how to speak, gap scheme, baby. So anyway, containers come in all shapes and sizes. And when it comes to practice planning, I think that using those shells and writing down, having a plan, everyone should know the plan to just make things more efficient. So
yeah, and I'll add one more in the practice that a lot of coaches don't do is the script. I like to script 7 plays, and we should be able to get 7 plays done in a 4 or 5 minute period, depending on how wild I'm allowed to let go and just run the practice at my pace. I don't always get allowed to.
14 in 5 minutes. Got it.
Yeah. So, planning for 7 in I like 4-minute periods because, again, it's just a tighter container. It makes everybody uncomfortable. But, 7 plays in 4 minutes. And I know that if we go through the first period and we've only done 6 plays or 5 plays, we got to pick it up. But we've got to, we got to keep moving. We got to keep it going. We have to slide a couple minutes away from a water break or whatever, however we function it. But we always build in little buffers in the practice plan. So like a water break doesn't have to be a whole period. Have water at the stations, go get a splash, come back, let's go. The script, though, keeps you from running just running random plays for a while. And then you're like, it's time to go. And you're like, oh no, we haven't done this. We haven't done that. We haven't done that. So the script is a container. But again, like you said, it also makes sure. So all of those things, they're so effective.
I want to create a name. Can we call it a graduated container?
A graduated
cylinder has marks on it.
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm doing it. I'm coining it right now. The graduated container.
Yeah. And you always, like you said, you always put those rocks, the big rocks in first. That's your focus. Yeah. That's got to get done. Monday special teams focus, but there's always going to be a punt and a kickoff mixed into the script. That's the sand, right? But the focus is we got to get better at power today, right?
I love it. All right, here's your post-episode assignment. Take 10 seconds and share this out to one coach. That's how these ideas spread. That's how more people get brought in and bought into what you're trying to do as a coach or what we're trying to spread as as the podcast. So that's kind of how we all get better. Today we talked about compartmentalizing your coaching, how to use the containers principle, staying focused for faster development for players and coaches and everything in between, and getting more done in less time. Last week, we talked about things I wish I knew before becoming a head coach. My list has already grown this week, so I wish we could record that again because there's things out there. There's things that I'll continue learning every week. I feel like my level up could just be this head coaching experience. Anyway, and then next week, we're doing do your play calls know their why? So come jump back in and figure out what the why is behind all these things that we do in football. But to finish off tonight, let's get our level up in, Joe.
Yeah, so it's the release of the early access period that we did for the 4.2 the coaching football's 4.25 defense second edition, that we opened that up last week, and for just a few days we had a tremendous response. We had probably the best, as great a response as I could possibly hope for, with the number of coaches who jumped in. And obviously, as we put it out there, we're asking a lot from our members, but also from new coaches coming in with the feedback that we're going to be looking for on the manual. And if you've got the manual and you've already gone through it, then please just email me your feedback. I'll be sending some stuff out about it. We'll be setting up our coach calls and our Coach Simple process with it as well. But tremendous response to it. And I mean, for me, as I talked about it, a couple episodes ago, I'm really, really proud of what has been put into that manual. And just the sheer fact of the number of years that I have in everything that I've done, the number of years of writing, the number of years of working with coaches on the 4.25, and just in podcasting and everything else, and being able to put everything that I think of into words better and organize it better. Obviously every time that I do something like this, I think it should be better than it was before. Otherwise, there's no reason to do it. And I think this is in every possible way even better than the original. Now, obviously, we have the 4.25 defense system and JDFB premium coaching systems and all the support that goes with that. This is just a book, so it's not exactly the same. But I mean, the manual I'm very, very proud of, and I'm excited for all the new coaches that we have coming into JDFB, and I hope that manual gets them going, because I don't think you can do it all from a book.
Provocative.
I don't think you can do it all from a book, but we got everything that you need to do it all. And I hope that gets you going.
If you didn't get that Will Ferrell reference, shame on you. It's the greatest man alive in comedy. I have two, because I don't have a container for
container is one level up, but okay.
I can't ever. My weeks are so busy, man. There's so much going on. The first one is I started about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, I started talking to my pastor at church, and he says I'm going through a spiritual awakening, and I'm seeing the power of God and a lot more things. I've always been a believer, but man, going to the military and going overseas will change your mind about not even the bad stuff. Like you see bad stuff, and it's like, how does evil exist? Which was one of my questions to him. But just geography. Why is my religion right, and some poor kid is born in Afghanistan and he's got the wrong religion, now he doesn't go to heaven, right? So big questions. In fact, I'm gonna pitch another podcast here. The Transfer Live is our church's podcast, which is what we now do on Wednesday nights. And I got to do that episode a couple ago, and it's the title's really, really long and the rest are short. So you can jump over and listen to that and kind of listen to all the questions I had and talk a little bit about being overseas and whatnot. Anyway, so because of all this, I'm trying to be more involved in the church. And so I'm going to play guitar but guys, I have been playing guitar for 11 or 12 years, but I've never had a coach. I've never bought a book. It's been like trying to self-teach. I am terrible at guitar. I found out this Sunday when I went to practice. No, I'm terrible at guitar. Like, I can keep rhythm. Strum pattern, got it. I can play some chord, but I do not have a large library of chords. And there's secret sauce I found out to like playing chords that look hard to play, and then you make them something else with your capo. Nope, I'm not there yet. So I knew about 30% of the things on the piece of paper, and it was very, very hard. Now, that's something that scares me. So that's something I'm trying to do, is do something that scares me like once a week.
Right.
Getting a piano for my birthday was very scary. So now getting in front of people and playing my guitar. And I told them at the end of practice, this is drinking through a fire hose. I will be practicing with you guys more, but I shall not be playing on Sundays or for actual church because I am, nope, not ready. Anyway, go do something that scares you. And then the last one, this is something just so stupid, Joe. But especially, I know you understand because you shave your head bald. But every man has walked through Walmart and saw the security camera and it's pointed at the back of your head because it's recording the door. And we all see that shiny bald spot. Not all, most of us have. It's gotten so bad over the last 10 years, my bald spot is growing. And I was actually counting heads at our 425 clinic because I was like, I sat behind the crew for a little while and I was like, it's like 95% of the guys there. We have this bald spot, right? We got the male pattern baldness. And I've said my whole life, like, I don't understand plastic surgery and all this, like trying to look young. But I still don't understand going plastic surgery. That's so crazy. But like, I put lotion on my face now to try to slow down the wrinkling. And because we spend a lot of time in the sun, man, right? Like
Yeah, we do.
we're worse than anybody else. And I bought the Amazon version of Rogaine. I used ChatGPT and said, what am I supposed to do? Like 5 years ago, some guy said he uses a micro roller or something and then castor oil. It's supposed to make your hair grow. And I never really got into that. But I ChatGPT'd it and it was like, do not do that. That's how you get infections. Just get Rogaine or this knockoff version. So I have to admit that I have started trying to prevent my bald spot from getting any larger, which is because I don't know that I can, Joe. I don't know if I can be bald. So weird. Anyway,
I tried that in however many 20 years ago maybe that I started. I mean, it started when I was my first year of teaching. I was 22 years old, 23 years old, and I remember my Tyler Mosley, who was the head wrestling coach that I learned so much from, was probably my first mentors probably my first mentor in coaching. And he would make little comments about my hair falling out. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then like I noticed it. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I tried it. It was like I was like 26 or 27. And I never found out if it worked or not because this was probably just me and I probably could have tried a different brand, but it made my head itch so bad that I was like, I can't deal with this. I can't just, there we go. We're done. It's over.
I was thinking of what's the daggum movie where they all go to Vegas?
Hangover?
Yes. Remember I won't say his name, the doctor, when he's being paged to the car, his wife is like, don't forget your Rogaine. I'm like, my wife has never been like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like I want to try to do something for her because it's weird. Once you know, it's like the confidence is, you forget.
Yeah, no, it's worth giving it a shot.
Yeah.
So
All right.
I did.
Let's play the Bills one more time. Let's get out of here, man.
All right. Yeah, just again, our Coach Simple process at JDFB. When you sign up for JDFB Premium Coaching Systems, you start our Coach Simple process. And again, step one, we get to kick off registration from you, get all the information about your program. It takes 4 to 8 minutes to fill out. It's not that in-depth. I mean, it's in-depth, but it doesn't take that long to get, this information. We do your 35-point kickoff diagnostic. That's us know where your football program is at right now. Follow that up with a personalized roadmap to victory video from me, which points out the things in our quick start guide, the 7 kind of pillars of JDFB, the ones that you should focus on that can help you make the biggest impact for your program as fast as possible. We schedule part 3. We schedule your one-on-one coach call with me. We get on the phone. I ask you a couple questions. There's nothing to sell. There's no sales calling like that. You get to ask questions, talk ball, whatever it is. I've had guys just come on there and be like, man, I just need to talk ball with somebody. Day's been long. Like, all right, it's fine. That's fine with me too. We answer questions, make sure you're going in the right direction with JDFB. And then step 4, we continue to support you all through the offseason, all through the 2026 football season. We have our Chalk Talk Q&A calls on Monday nights once a month during the offseason, and then every Monday night during the 2026 fall season. And we have a Chalkboard community forum where you can ask questions and get ideas, share ideas with like-minded coaches there. So that's the process. We make sure that it's way more than just some videos. And when you see some videos, there's going to be some videos, but we make sure you're not just overwhelmed by everything drinking from a fire hose in there either, because everything is organized. It's not just like, here's access to everything. Good luck. That's the Coach Simple process at JDFB Premium Coaching Systems. Gold or platinum, both levels get that level of support. And then we add in the game film analysis and the staff access for platinum coaches. So go check it out. Go to joedanielfootball.com/membership. If you're ready to jump in, we're going to make sure you get everything that you need to be successful with it.
Love it. Social media wise, I'm at Coach Chambo OK on X. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Yeah. Joe, where are you at, boss?
Email me, Joe at JoeDanielFootball.com. Tell me where you want the next 425 defense clinic. Tell me if you'd like to host. Just hit me up there. And if you have any questions about JDFB, that is the place to go. Joe at JoeDanielFootball.com. And then, of course, the website is JoeDanielFootball.com.
Perfect. If this is your first time listening to the Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on your favorite podcatcher, especially Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You've been listening for a while. Please do leave a review, especially in those two places. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. And remember, coach simple, play fast, win.